when it comes to just really any content, like everything is unique. The
Yeah.
copy is unique. The images are unique. The videos are unique. Everything is unique, especially now with AI, because it's so easy to produce content these days.
Mm-hmm.
That is how you can really stand out. It's small little details. Like, for example, I've been seeing some local businesses where they're using AI generated images on their landing pages. Why would you do that? Like,
Yeah.
if you're a roofer, you should show real pictures from you on the job, showing some hideous roof and then showing some beautiful roof after, and showing that before and after. Real life pictures. That's actually way more impactful, in my opinion.
Hey friends, welcome back to the Evergreen Marketing Podcast by Kara.com, where we help you build a business of freedom and impact. I'm your host, Brady Winder, and today I have a guest I'm going to introduce you to. He's here to talk about what's changed in SEO over the last year, what's in stores, what's moving the needle, what AI tools are working for content creation, and really what you need to be focused on if you want to generate motivated seller leads through SEO, through local search. So I figure who better than to come on here and talk about this than Nathan Gotch. He's the founder of Gotch SEO, one of the best SEO guys in, I was going to say in our industry, but just period. He's an SEO expert and the founder of a really awesome tool for SEO called Rankability. But Nathan, welcome to the podcast, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, man. It's good to have you on. I'm really excited to nerd out with you. We got to talk at Summit about kind of some of the best practices and things that are working for SEO. But it's been probably about 6 months now, and SEO changes every day. And
Moves fast.
Yeah, I kind of think of this conversation as like the state of SEO for 2024 and 2025. What are the big things we need to pay attention to? So you ready to dive in, man?
Let's do it.
So Google leak happened this year. We had a major algorithm shift. What are some of the biggest shifts you've seen over the last year that have changed the way we do SEO?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't. I mean, obviously the leak was a big thing, and a lot of people, a lot of speculation about as to how real a lot of those factors are, and how active those factors are. So obviously we could spend a lot of time talking about that. I wasn't surprised by anything. Let's just say that much,
Yeah.
as far as
Okay.
what I saw in there.
Yeah.
But as far as the algorithm updates, I wish I could tell you there was something different that came from these last algorithm updates, but truthfully, it's kind of a lot of the same stuff. Authority sites continue to win, right? Authority sites continue to win, and Google has not turned down the dial on user generated content. So that's going to be Reddit, that's going to be forums, forum threads from 2004 ranking. Google seems to continue down that path. And this makes sense if you look at Google's EEAT guidelines, and especially them adding that extra E to there, which is, EEAT, which is the first one is experience. And it makes a lot of sense because if you're trying to combat AI content, which is everywhere now, the way to combat it is to find content that's highly nuanced and has a lot of subjective opinion in it, and is not just cookie cutter, right? And that's the one thing about Reddit. It's not what I would consider high quality content when you find a thread, right?
Yeah.
But you cannot deny that there's opinions being shared in there, right? And there's a lot of subjective nature going on in there. So I think that's one of the ways that Google's been trying to combat the AI issue. Is it a good strategy? Most people don't agree with it, I would say.
Yeah.
But that is something that I don't know if they're going to change at this point, especially now that there's some sort of engagement between Reddit and Google. So they have some sort of business partnership. So I don't see a situation where Reddit's all of a sudden going to disappear from the SERPs. I
Is
think
there
that's
really?
probably,
I didn't know about that between Reddit
Yeah.
and Google. I feel like
Yeah, so-
Reddit's critical. Like I'll Google, I Googled something this morning. I can't remember what it was, but I just tack Reddit onto the end of like a third of my searches because I want the internet unfiltered sometimes.
right. Yeah. And it's good for that. But yeah, Google actually paid Reddit to use their data to train their AI. So,
okay.
so
Interesting.
there is a relationship there, but throughout, I've been doing SEO since 2011. And like the one thing that has continued to always be the same throughout all these updates is that authority sites continue to be the thing that do not get hit. They don't get hit very rarely. Like there is that site reputation abuse penalty that just went through for Forbes specifically and a few other sites. But that had to do more with parasite SEO and exploiting, authority in that way. But for the most part, when you look at just like core updates and algorithm updates, these authority sites, they're pretty much untouched.
Yeah.
And so that's something that doesn't seem to be changing. But I would say there are other things that probably are more we should be paying attention to a little bit more in
Hmm.
SEO as opposed to algorithm updates because can't really control that anyway.
Yeah.
The one thing that to me is like the biggest shift that's going on is obviously Search GPT,
Hmm.
right? And it is no Google at this point. However, it is definitely something that like it's starting to there's I'm seeing a path now where we have to start thinking about doing SEO across multiple platforms.
Hmm.
And there's just no way that you can be kind of like all your eggs in one basket for just Google anymore.
Meaning
I
that
think it's
basket being just your website,
yeah,
or just.
exactly, exactly. Because many many years ago, you could build an entire business just on Google. Like
Mhm.
if you built your whole strategy around doing SEO just for Google, you could certainly build a business that way. That's really risky now.
Hmm.
Because even like small things, like if you search certain keywords, in Google, you're going to see video packs sometimes, meaning
Mhm.
that Google is showing a preference for video specifically, and that they've been able to identify the intent there. So, like for example, if you search how to dribble a basketball, they
Yeah.
know based on their user signals when people search that they tend to probably click on the video tab or they end up on YouTube somehow, right?
Yeah.
So they're not going to Google's not going to prioritize a bunch of articles about how to dribble a basketball when they know people prefer video.
Right.
And I think sometimes people forget that Google is they're trying to deliver the best results for the user, right?
Yeah.
And this is their product. So they want to deliver the best results and they do that based on the the user signals in the SERPs. Whatever gets clicked on the most, that's how it informs Google what should be showing
Hmm.
based on user behavior. So and so along with that, the reason I'm saying this is because if you're just going to focus on Google, you're playing a very dangerous game because there are so many other ways to get leads outside of just Google. And in fact, if you let's say just in the case of YouTube, you go and build a YouTube presence, it actually supports your performance on Google as well.
Right. Yeah.
Even a small thing, like for example, it's nearly impossible to rank for the keyword SEO. Like no chance. Any new website has virtually no chance to rank for that on Google.
Yeah.
However, on YouTube, I can rank for that,
Hmm.
right? I can rank for that and I'll show up in the video pack for that keyword on the first page of Google because of my YouTube presence. So not having a YouTube presence, not building brand on X and LinkedIn and just kind of focusing on this omnipresent approach, you're kind of just not doing yourself any favors. So
Yeah.
and especially now with speaking of the leak, and it's actually not the leak that fascinates me the most. It's actually Google's court case that fascinates me way more,
Mm. Yeah.
because they
The
actually had to
antitrust.
yeah, they had to actually reveal a lot of things about the algorithm, and a few things is number one, they're tracking everything we're doing,
Mhm.
right? Which is
Yep.
that's always been conspiracy. Like I said that many many years ago, and people said it was conspiracy, but when you're on Google Chrome, they are tracking what you're doing.
Yeah.
That is a
Yeah.
fact. And they're using it to inform Google search. So, and they say that specifically in the court case, it's all public documentation now. But they are tracking everything. And so you have to be really serious about user signals on your website. It's really, really important. And so that's why like these days, I basically tell everyone to install user tracking software on their website. So you could use a tool like Mouseflow or Hotjar or whatever you want, just to be able to get those signals and be able to see the heat maps and the click data and all of
Mhm.
that. So then you can make adjustments on your page to improve user engagement.
Yeah.
And then the other big piece of this is that Google's basically confirmed as well that branded searches and brand signals in general also affect SEO performance.
Yeah.
So, which once again makes perfect sense. This is probably why a lot of affiliate websites get hit by these algorithm updates because they
They don't
only
have
have
any brand power.
they
Yeah.
have nothing, right? They have a lot of traffic from Google, and that's it. They don't have a presence on X and a presence on LinkedIn. They don't have a big YouTube following. Not saying that's going to like stop you from getting penalized, but it is something like if you're comparing two things, like this brand with no other evidence that they're legitimate versus this brand that clearly has, a portfolio of content, an audience that's been built up based on trust. I think it's pretty obvious who Google would pick in that case, right? I'm not saying it's that black and white,
Right.
but it's just these are the things you need to think about. So I would say like right now the biggest thing is almost like thinking just more about doing digital marketing
Mm,
and thinking about like Google is one sliver of the pie. It's still a huge, huge sliver of that pie. Massive. Probably should be your biggest sliver considering Google's the number one website and by far. It's not even close.
yeah.
If you go and look at the data, not to continue on a rant on this, but it's just crazy when you start to look at the data because everyone says Google's dead and all the propaganda about that.
Yeah.
Uh, but go and look at the most popular websites on the internet. If you take Google's traffic and you could take, I think it's like 2 through 12 most popular websites, combine them together, and Google still has more traffic. That's how much traffic Google gets. So,
Interesting. Yeah.
when people say it's dead, the data doesn't support that at all.
Yeah.
so,
Huh. That's wild.
so anyway, yeah, just some things that have been kind of going through my mind here, and then obviously there's the AI piece of Google as well, which we can talk about as well.
So
So,
this kind of makes a couple questions pop up in my head. One related to like other platforms, making sure that you're satisfying other search engines, and then the other one I'll kind of touch on in a sec is like user experience and on page experience. So we're going into 2025. Are you changing where you're spending your time? Like, you're trying to help more clients get ranked in TikTok or Pinterest or YouTube? Like, one thing that occurred to me just in the last couple of weeks is I didn't realize how big of a search engine TikTok was becoming. And it's generations my age and younger more so tends to be going to it just to search for things to try and get a 20-second video like how to dribble a basketball instead of having to sit through a 15-minute explainer just to get the meat out of it. Like, just show me that one quick, like, just for the really quick, easy to explain stuff. So, yeah, are you looking at other, how you handle looking at other platforms besides Google?
yeah, I mean, I think the plan should be to optimize everywhere. Just
Yeah.
do SEO literally everywhere, and it's actually not that difficult because as long as you understand the customer journey for whatever your business is,
Mhm.
you should be able to create content specific to each platform, right?
Yeah.
And so I will say, um, I don't believe that TikTok and some of these other platforms are necessarily great for localized searches
Mm.
yet, right? I think maybe there is a future where there is something there. I do know that TikTok does a good job of showing geo specific content. So like if you're a plumber and you're creating plumbing content specifically to St. Louis, it may push some of that content to a user who's showed intent there, right?
Yeah.
Um, but it's kind of that's a hard strategy to kind of rely on,
Right. And
right?
it's also the
Um,
intent would probably be like other plumbers, contractors, DIYers. So probably
Ye
not your,
exactly. So I don't, and even like with Search GPT, for example, and it's very, very new. So I'm being very I'm not being harsh on it at this point, but like its localized results are really bad compared to Google. I mean, just really terrible.
mm,
So like as far as that goes right now, like local searches, Google is king for the foreseeable future. But it's more of the stuff that's non-localized where I think there can be a lot of opportunity. Like we have a client who's in the Disney travel industry. And, that's a perfect platform for that type of business, right?
yeah.
Create content specific to Disney, distribute it on TikTok. You get it in front of all these Disney maniacs who love Disney. And this is my family, by the way.
Yeah.
And just can distribute that to the right audience, right? And it's there.
Yeah.
And that's the same with YouTube as well, right? And the same with Facebook. So there is some kind of specific elements, like platform specific to certain industries. But yeah, this is the type of thing where it's like I think you need to understand the contextual nuances of the business. Like I
Yeah.
don't know, I don't know if an electrician is going to do super well on Pinterest. Let's just be honest here, right?
Yeah.
Like there's certain platforms that are just not great for certain businesses.
Yeah.
So that's a part of it too. But yeah, just trying to think omnipresent. Like what are the 3 to 5 platforms that we should build a presence on. And really, at the end of the day, at least my goal when on the social media or any of these platforms is to create content with the objective of driving branded searches to Google,
Mm,
right? That's what
yeah.
I'm trying to do because, uh, and obviously I'm not a social media expert. I'm good at doing my own stuff for my own specific personal brand. I can't say what's going to work for other people, but I can just tell you what's worked for me specifically. And when I create content on social, there's no links, there's really no calls to action really at all.
Yeah.
So I'm just creating native content to that platform with the goal that people say, "Oh, that was helpful." And then they go to Google and say, "Who's Nathan Gotch? What's Gotch SEO Academy? What's
Mm,
Rankability?"
yeah.
Um, and then you get the double effect from that is you build trust with Google. And of course, anyone who searches your brand is also warmer and they're probably much more likely to convert relative to just, cold traffic. So
Interesting.
yeah,
Well, I'm glad you walked through that because I wouldn't want to distract like our audience is real estate investors, trying to generate motivated seller leads. And I wouldn't want them to think like, okay, I got to get on TikTok today. Local search and like national search are very different things.
very.
Yeah. So you said focus on like 3 to 5 different platforms. Would you bucket in offline marketing in those 3 to 5? Like for instance, I know a couple of real estate investors doing really well that have omnipresent marketing, but they're running TV ads, radio ads, and they're doing like direct mail, printed mailers. And it's driving a lot of brand search and it's really helping their SEO because they got a lot of people just Googling their brand name. Would you lump those in, or are you saying still 3 to 5 online platforms?
Yeah, I mean, what I was referring to is more focused like at online digital platforms, but what you're describing is absolutely something that should continue to happen because honestly, anything that can drive branded searches should happen.
Yeah.
That is a good thing. In fact, I worked with a big supplement company many years ago in St. Louis, and when I started, they were doing exactly that. They were doing a lot of offline advertising, and they had just a ton of branded searches. And so when I started that campaign, it was like, for a lack of a better phrase, taking candy from a baby,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
I'm like, look at all this beautiful trust that this brand has already built up. So now all I have to do is focus on going after the non-branded keywords. And it worked super, super well, right? Because that trust was already built. So there's just a lot of little things you can see now as to why certain websites do not survive. And this is to me is a really big one. Like those brand signals, I think are a huge, huge trust factor. And Google's tried to deny this for many, many years, by the way, that,
Mhm.
oh, why would brand signals be, we would never use that. That's not something we'd be concerned of. But it's like, well, why do all the sites that survive Google updates also have a ton of branded searches, also have a lot of link authority? So you
Yeah.
start to see the signs and you're like, okay, I know correlation isn't causation, but it's just, you start to see some things that correlate pretty well.
Yeah.
And plus, there's no downside to either of those things, right? There's
Right.
no downside to building site authority. There's no downside to driving branded searches because it helps the business. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm a big fan of that. I think anything that you can do to amplify that there's just so many direct and indirect benefits of doing it. So yeah, that's big. That's big.
That's good to hear. It's funny. We were doing a live podcast about a week ago. Myself and my coworker Mallory, and we are talking about how starting with a memorable brand name or having a really unique brand name and maybe some sort of catchy slogan just makes everything else easier because it makes it so much easier for people to remember you and have a reason to search you versus like a generic business name.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, and simple is good, right? Simple is
Yeah.
good. So, I mean, carrot, I mean, come on, that's
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Um, so I want to touch on you were talking about on-page experience. So in 2024 for SEO, we learned that on-page experience is critical. Like people need to be staying on your website. It needs to be a good user experience. It needs to have the right types of content to keep them engaged because Google cares about that for ranking. Um, are there any specific things you're seeing in heat maps or things you're looking at that are keeping people on page or anything you're doing to help conversion?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, funny, the thing is, and there can be somewhat of a misconception on this sometimes. So I think sometimes people think dwell time is good,
Hmm.
right? So they think, okay, if the user's there for a long time, that's a positive signal. But that's only kind of that depends on the intent,
Hmm.
right? So, like, for example, if you search what time is it in St. Louis and you got your answer, would you need to be there for a long time?
Yeah.
No,
Good point. Yeah.
right? Like, you got your answer, you're good to go, you leave, right? Now, obviously, that's not an ideal experience for your website because you need people to stay on your site, to go to second pages, to do things like that. So I think first let's establish what good signals are on the site. So number one is them actually scrolling. And that seems really elementary. You would not believe when you start to install heat map technology on your website, it is scary how many people don't get past the above the fold. I
It's
mean,
crazy. It's
you
unreal. I've seen it with
it's
our own websites and it's like, oh my gosh.
yeah. And I mean, and the sites that I'm looking at are like good websites. These are not like mediocre sites by any means. And even they cannot get the majority of people to get below the fold. So
Hmm.
the for me, like the most important section of any page on the internet is above the fold. Like
Yeah.
so much time needs to be spent there. And it's so critical. Even for blog posts. So many people neglect the design of their blog content.
Hmm.
They a lot of the time you'll see huge featured image, enormous featured image that pushes the content way below the fold. Oftentimes they'll push the headline below the fold.
Oof.
And that's like UX suicide 101, right?
Yeah.
Because for like proper UX is when someone lands on a page, the title, the visible headline really is what tells someone the topic of that page and make sure that they know where they are,
Mhm.
right? And
Yeah.
so if you push that below the fold, you're just basically confusing them and you're making it very difficult. There's actually a really good book. It's a UX based book, but it's called Don't Make Me Think.
Don't make
And
me think. Interesting.
yeah. And this is a book like the title of that book actually runs through my head a lot when I'm analyzing pages. And I'm like, don't make me think. Okay. And it's like, when I feel the friction, that's when I know something's wrong.
Yeah.
Right. So it's eliminating friction and making sure that the user or the searcher, whoever's ending up on that page is getting what they came for right away. There's nothing taking away from that because I don't know if it's designers or, they tend to just put stuff on pages because it's pretty, but
Yeah.
not because it's actually useful for the user. So,
Mm.
so
Yeah.
there's trying to find that balance. And this is why like ugly sales letters convert really well, right?
Yeah.
Because they're raw. They don't have any of the nonsense. They're just right to the point.
And
And
you're
so that's why
forced to just start reading. And if your writing is compelling, then
yep,
there's nothing else to get distracted by. Yeah.
exactly.
And
So,
people ask us all the time, like, why are carrot sites so text heavy? Like, why you got so much text on there? Well, because someone's looking at selling their house. They want to do their research and they have lots of questions, and
right,
that copy's necessary to move them along. Yeah, you don't need a bunch of fancy
absolutely.
images.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of the first thing is like just obsessing about above the fold. And this applies to informational pages, obviously, definitely applies to transactional pages. If it's transactional kind of commercial page,
Mhm.
having calls to action above the fold is just fundamental, right? So whether
Yeah.
that's a form or some sort of call to action button or a phone number, push it up way above the fold.
Yeah.
Another thing is too on a commercial page, which is something you'll see a lot of really good websites do this, they'll push a lot of their most critical social proof above the fold too. So
Mm.
if you've got some really good social proof, get that right above. Just assume no one's going to scroll. So if this is your only chance to persuade this person, you want to have it all above the fold so they can at a glance see everything about your brand essentially to get them to know, like, and trust you in about 1 second,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
if you think about it that way, that can kind of change how pages get structured.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing is that scrolling is so important. And if you do a good job, hopefully you get them to go down to the next section, which is a really good positive signal for
Right.
the page. So another thing is to now I'm starting to really think of things here.
Yeah. Go
Um,
for it, man.
like when someone loads a page and the first thing they see is a huge pop up in their face,
Mm.
that's just like really bad for so
Yeah.
many reasons. And usually a lot of the pop-ups, it's not like they're compelling either.
Yeah.
So someone will come in from, let's say someone searched real estate investor St. Louis and they come in here, they land on the site. First thing they see is this pop-up that says join my newsletter.
Yeah.
Well, that's not why they originally came to your site though. They didn't come to your site to join your newsletter. They came to, learn more about you specifically, right? Or your services. So what you're doing is you're disrupting their experience and you're preventing them from achieving the goal that they had,
Yeah.
right? And so I'm not against pop-ups, by the way. I'm just against them being loaded as soon as someone lands there.
Yeah.
So, and there's ways to get around that. So, like, and by the way, the sites that are most notorious at doing this are e-commerce websites. They are
Yeah.
notorious. You land on the site, boom, pop up in your face.
Here's your 10%
Um,
off coupon you didn't ask for.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So yeah, they haven't even taken you out to dinner yet, and they're already trying to close you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the workaround for this is to do it. There's a few different ways. Number one, do it based on user engagement. So like if they scroll, let's say 50% of the way down the page, then maybe hit them with a pop-up that can, get persuade them to take further action. Or if they go to a second page, then hit them with the pop-up. Because now they've showed intent that there's interest and good things are happening. Uh, and then the third one is just based on exiting. So if they're about to leave the site, try to capture them so we can kind of retain them from leaving.
Yeah.
But one thing that's been helpful for me is this kind of ruins websites, by the way. So just take this with a grain of salt. But this is like
Yeah.
I was in college. I took this film and philosophy class, and we had to watch Inception like 100 times. And ever since that point, I can't ever watch it again
Really?
because we had to like analyze every little detail of Inception, like every line. We'd stop the movie, and then we have to talk about it, stop the movie.
Yeah.
And that's how you're gonna feel when you start to think about what I'm about to say, is like when you're on a site like YouTube, or you're on a site like Facebook or TikTok in particular, they're very, very good at this. Think about why you're on that site for so long. Like just start to think about like what are they doing to make me stay on here? What is TikTok doing to make me stay on this site for an hour watching useless videos that I won't remember in 3 minutes from now?
Mhm.
Like why is that happening?
Yeah.
And
I feel like it's making your brain go like, it's the hows and the why. How do they do that? Why do they do that? What's most interesting to me right now? They're really good at predicting the thing I want to see or hear next. I don't know.
exactly. Yeah, well, and also the thing is too, the overarching idea with these websites is that their number one job is to keep you there.
Yeah.
They do not want you to leave. That's why YouTube doesn't like when you link out. TikTok doesn't like when you link out. If you want to see proof of this, go on LinkedIn and drop a link in a post and
Mm,
see what happens to your reach. It gets slaughtered. It gets absolutely slaughtered. And it's the same with all the social media platforms because their number one objective is to keep you retained on the site. So one thing that can help any website is to think more like them.
mm.
Think more like, how do we keep people on our site? Because if you think about it, if you're selling some sort of service, the longer someone stays on your site, the more pages they visit, the higher likelihood that they're going to convert on whatever you're selling. Just a fact, right?
Interesting. Is this why you see more like, oh, link in the comments on Facebook, TikTok?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
I just
Yep.
learned something today. That was good.
Yeah. And that's actually something I do on my posts. So on LinkedIn, I'll write my native post, right? So super informational. And then I'll do a PS section. I'll say, by the way, check out da 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 in the comments. So what it does is it's kind of it's a workaround to trick the algorithm because the algorithm will literally penalize you if you link out. That is just what happens.
Yeah.
Um, and so this is, and if you want to test this yourself, just go post a link in a post and just watch what happens to your reach. It does not do well.
I'm gonna be trying that
So
out. Yeah.
yeah. But the point is like keeping people on the site. That's really, really important. So as far as user signals go, scrolling, clicking, bookmarking the page, going to a second page, and most importantly, the biggest signal, which is Google can actually track this, by the way, in Google Chrome, and of course they'll say they can't, but they do. Is what's called a goal completion.
Mm,
So if someone comes in for, let's say, they're searching St. Louis plumber, they land on a page and they actually submit a lead form, Google is tracking that. So
yeah.
what it's doing is it's tracking, okay, they clicked on that result on Google, which they're tracking CTR in Google. They landed on the site and they submitted a form. That's like, let's just say it's like plus 3 points for your website,
Yeah.
essentially. Of course, that's not how the algorithm works, but just to visually see what that would look like, it'd be a huge positive signal if that happens. because
Yeah.
what it's doing is it's training the algorithm to know that that result was accurate for that query,
Yeah. That makes
right?
sense.
So the more you can make that happen on your site, the better you're going to perform. And so anyway, yeah, that was a
Yeah.
lot, but it just that's
That's
kind of
okay. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, it's good news for Carrot members, and I'm glad you brought up the whole thing about heat maps, and a lot of people just not scrolling down past the header, past the top of the page, because like Carrot websites, we emphasize the crap out of conversion. We put a lot of work into conversion, and a lot of that is already done for our members in the header of the website. It's like the right copy is there, the right form is there. We've got the button color, the size, all that is dialed in. So that as soon as you land on the site, you're like, okay, I know how they can help me, what they do, and how to get in touch with them. So boom, like lead capture right there, without being, like without being the 10% off coupon pop up. you know, it's helpful. And then, yeah, that credibility bar right there below with social proof and where else you've been featured, a couple of reviews below that. Yeah, it's huge.
yeah. And then just eliminating anything that does not align with whatever the objective is of that page.
Mm,
So
yep.
there's if you just have just for a lack of a better word, junk on your page that isn't helping them get closer to becoming a lead, just get rid of it. You
Yeah.
see this a lot when people are like creating longer form content that just add like decorative stuff, but it
Related
doesn't.
tangential things. Yeah.
Yeah, but it doesn't help at all. You'd be better off not having any image than having some decorative image that just distracts from the message. Like,
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of like when it comes to just really any content, like everything is unique. The
Yeah.
copy is unique, the images are unique, the videos are unique, everything is unique. Especially now with AI because it's so easy to produce content these days.
Hmm.
That is how you can really stand out. Because it's small little details. Like for example, I've been seeing some local businesses where they're using AI generated images on their landing pages. And I'm like, why would you do that? Like
Yeah.
if you're a roofer, you should show real pictures from you on the job showing some hideous roof and then showing some beautiful roof after and showing that before and after. Real life pictures. That's actually way more impactful in my opinion, but
Yeah.
it comes down to laziness, I guess.
Well,
So
it's really interesting because I'm seeing what you're seeing. I'm seeing a lot more like AI generated imagery, and it reminds me of like, I don't know, early 2000s when like blogs were taking off and Blogspot and Blogger were a big deal, and not Pinterest but like Photo Bucket was thriving, and people were just going nuts with images, and it's like it took a while for people to realize, oh wait, maybe we're going ham with the images. Maybe these aren't really adding any value. Maybe we just got excited about how cool it was and we should put images all over everything. And that's what I see happening with AI image generation. It's like, and AI generated content. I'm like, wow, this is really cool. I'm going to create this content because I can and because it's fast and it's easy without thinking about, okay, but is this the most helpful content? Is this going to serve people well? And is it going to win? Yeah,
yeah.
it's interesting.
Well, and also with the AI written content, the problem it stems from the idea of someone believing that words are what matter.
Yeah,
It just the quantity of words does not produce better SEO results and does not produce better conversions. Like
yeah.
that is not the right philosophy to live by.
So
Um,
how are you recommending people to use SEO right now? Because I see a lot of people using it poorly, just creating like mass AI generated content. Some people using it to spark ideas. What are you doing?
you talking about ChatGPT specifically?
Yeah, ChatGPT or yeah, I'd say ChatGPT.
Yeah. Man, there's so many ways to use ChatGPT outside of just content creation, obviously. That's like the lowest hanging fruit that I think most people understand at this point.
Hmm.
And by the way, I'm not opposed to it. We rank with plenty of ChatGPT driven content. But what I am opposed is to just generating the content and slapping it on your website.
Gotcha.
That is a massive mistake. And so, but it can be useful in many ways. But I would say like that's the lowest hanging fruit is just the copywriting. And like I said, for my threshold at this point is if it's low competition, we'll sometimes do a first draft in AI if it's low
Mhm.
competition. Anything that's moderate to high competition keywords, we're just skipping AI altogether. Just
Mm,
to because the way I think about it is like if you're going to rank for, I don't know, how to build backlinks, okay?
mhm.
Good luck using AI.
Yeah.
Like, good luck. You have no chance because every single competitor in the top 10 has human written content, every single one.
Mm.
So if you try to come in with some generic chat GPT content, you're not even going to get in the top 50. It's just not going
Yeah.
to happen. Right. So competition now is how we dictate whether we should use AI or not.
That's
Um,
great. That's a good
and
takeaway.
yeah, and what we've been doing recently is like we view anytime we use AI content, we view it as what I call minimum viable content. So kind of like, in SaaS, minimum viable product,
Hmm.
minimum viable content. And what we're doing is we're getting that indexed, we're seeing how it performs. And if it's performing well, then we go back and we make it prettier, we make it better, we make it more readable. We do all those things that are going to make it stay there for a long time. Right.
Yeah.
Because what I notice some people do is they will get traction with AI content. They will get good rankings. They're like, okay, cool, let's create another one. But
Yeah.
what you want to do is make sure like you stay there because just getting into the top five, that's this is really important because I think some people don't realize this. Before you're in the top 10, you're playing a different game in SEO. So in fact, I'd say even before you're in the top five. So before you're in the top five, you're kind of playing this different game where Google might give you a chance. Okay. Google's going to give you a chance, possibly if it's low competition. And let's say it gives you a chance and you get into the top five. When you get to the top five, you just entered the second part of the game, which is Google's now going to get all those user signals that it's going to see from the search results and on your page itself, and that's what's going to determine whether you stay there or not.
Mm.
It's kind of I like to call it like the invisible force. And this is the thing you're not going to be able to use the tools to like see why your rankings are going down. You'll often
Mhm.
people hear people say like, I don't understand. I've got the same amount of links. I've got high quality links. They list all the things that they're exactly better than their competitors for as far as
Mhm.
SEO, but they're not ranking as well. But then you go and look at the page and you're like, well, your entire page is AI generated and it's really bad.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's like you didn't think about that part, but
They forgot about the human element. It was all
yeah,
technical, no human. Yeah.
exactly. And so you have to do both of those things. You can do just the technical and get far, but to stay there, you need to start to think about, okay, a human's actually going to land on this page. And
Yeah.
if a human lands on this page, are they going to actually read this? Are they actually going to convert? Are they actually going to do something positive with this content? And that's why for us, we're thinking about like that minimum viable content strategy because it's get it there and then make the adjustments with it. Funny enough, we run a lot of AI content tests,
Mhm.
and we've been recently doing like a cluster of like alternative affiliate programs. So basically, what we're doing,
Mm.
just I'll just share the strategy. We'll take a competitor's affiliate program. We'll write an affiliate program review. So it might be like, let's say, SEMrush affiliate program review. Okay,
Yeah.
and then we'll compare that to our Rankability affiliate program. Okay, in the content, and the Rankability affiliate program is an alternative to the SEMrush. Does that make sense as far as
Yeah.
the
Uh-huh.
angle? So what we've been doing is we've been using the minimum viable content strategy with that. So and we're doing like really minimum viable content. I mean, like just really lightly edited AI content, getting it out there because it's really low competition. So
Mhm.
get it out there. And what's been happening has been really fascinating because we've published a lot of these. A lot of them will rank really well initially. They'll get up into the top five, top 10, kind of in that range right out of the gate, doing really well. And they'll stay in that range for let's say a month or two. But then all of a sudden they just disappear.
Mm.
They just right out of the index. Google just takes them right out of the index and they're gone. So one thing we've been doing recently is, and just to test our theory, what we'll do is we'll create a completely new asset for that page. Except this time, and not to talk about my tool, but what we do is we'll use NLP, natural language processing,
Mhm.
and we'll get all the relevant keywords for that one keyword that we're going after. So if it's SEMrush affiliate program, we'll get all the relevant keywords to that primary keyword.
Right.
And then we'll feed all of those keywords back into ChatGPT and we'll say, create an SEO content outline for SEMrush for the SEMrush affiliate program using these NLP keywords. And then we'll
Mm.
just paste them in. And then what it will do is it will create a really deep outline. And then once that's done, we'll just use whatever the optimal word count is in Rankability. We'll say, okay, write a 400 word asset based on this outline, right? and it will write that, and we'll know for sure it's going to be 100% relevant for that query. And so we've been doing that. We replace that old content with that new strategy, and the rankings recover ever. I hate to say this, but every time. Like, and I don't
Interesting.
like to say guarantee anything, but the only difference here in that process is that the first version what didn't have any NLP optimization. The second version was fully optimized for NLP. Um, and that's the only difference. They're both AI content. We didn't like switch to a human or like we didn't
Right.
just AI to AI. The only difference was the NLP. So,
Interesting.
and we've done that a lot, and it just makes such a huge difference. So, and that's why like I'm so bullish about my tool in particular because like I
Yeah.
just seen the proof of it happen so many times. We take a page that wasn't optimized with NLP originally, re-optimize it, and rankings go up, and it just makes sense because it's more relevant.
Right.
So,
Interesting, man. So you got ChatGPT, Rankability. Are there any other AI tools you're using right now that are like you couldn't do without?
honestly, ChatGPT does so much
Yeah, I
for me
feel
at
you.
this point. Like, so going back to kind of the use cases that you mentioned earlier. So like I know we just went off on content, um, but one of the biggest things is coding. Like there are so many things you can do to have it build out free applications for you. And like one of my favorite ways to get links to a website is to build free applications or free tools.
Hmm.
So like for example, when ChatGPT first came out, which I guess was November 2022 now at this point,
Couple
I
of years
think.
now. Yeah.
Man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But when it first came out, I was so like, obviously like everyone else, like, whoa, this is like crazy technology. So I went and I created a script timer. And the reason I did this is because I was using a script timer for my YouTube videos. So like I'd write my YouTube script and I'd always go like type in script timer into Google and go to someone else's and put it in. I'm like, well, why don't I just do this for my own website? Clearly it's something that people need because I do it a lot.
Yeah.
So I built it all with ChatGPT. I had to build the HTML, the CSS, and the JavaScript. And I'm not a coder, by the way. And built it all. It took me about an hour. And to this day, that same exact script timer that I created back then is the same exact one that I created with ChatGPT, and it ranks in the top 5. It's been there for like 2 years. Hasn't
Is
moved.
that a script timer? Are you talking about when you're on a blog post and you're scrolling down? There's that bar that says like the 3 minutes left in this read.
A good question. No, it's actually you can take the amount of words in your YouTube script and then just put the words into the tool, and it will tell you how long it's going to take to like how long that video will be based on the script.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Interesting. That's cool.
so I created that tool, and it's crazy because the coding technology has advanced so much in the last 2 years that I'm sure it would be even better if I redid it now, but like it works, so I'm not going to touch it.
Yeah.
So,
Huh.
so that's another big one is creating like these free applications. Uh, Practically, I mean, for $20 a month, we have this power to literally have a coder on our team. Is just crazy to me.
Yeah.
And then the other big one too that I use for a lot is for data analysis. That's a big one. So you can
Mhm.
take a big set of
Yep.
data, upload it into ChatGPT and say, okay, analyze this data and give me your conclusions based on this data. And I've done that for a bunch of like SEO case studies. Like I did one for is keyword density a Google ranking factor? So I went and extracted like I looked at like, I don't know, I think maybe like couple hundred, I think it was a couple hundred different search results. I collected all the data for it, and then I uploaded to ChatGPT and basically gave it all the findings. And I came up with this study that basically said that keyword density is not a Google ranking factor based on the data.
Hmm.
Um, and then of course I had ChatGPT write the case study too. So
Yeah.
like so that
Interesting.
ranks as well. So that's another big one that I think people really neglect. I mean, its ability to process data is unreal. It's not always accurate, by the way. You got to be careful. It's
Yeah.
not always accurate,
I've noticed
but
that
yeah,
so with like either math or like analyzing spreadsheets, I'll have to double check it. Sometimes I'll see that it's wrong and I'll say, "Hey, this was wrong. Give me the right answer." Or I'll just be like, "Hey, are you sure? Can you double check that?" And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Give you
yeah,
let me
it
give you the
will
right
admit
answer now."
too. Yeah,
Yeah, it's such a funny, weird thing. Yeah, I did that recently with I sent out a survey to Carrot members about like what types of content they like, and it was nice just to be able to upload the spreadsheet of answers into ChatGPT. So I ran the survey in Google Sheets or Google Forms. I mean, it output a Google Sheet. Take that Google Sheet into ChatGPT and say, "Hey, Give me the insights from this. Like, give me a
Yeah.
summarize of like best takeaways, etc. So
Yeah. And
super
well,
helpful.
I know. And one other thing too, which to me has been like the coolest part about ChatGPT recently is it's really, really good at analyzing screenshots. So, like, if
Oh,
yeah,
oh,
if you take a screenshot of this is going back to us talking about like making your pages better.
mhm,
So, what I do when I'm trying to improve like a sales page, I'll take a screenshot of whatever's showing, and I'll say, okay, give me some ideas to improve this section of the sales page,
mm,
and it will analyze it. It will say, okay, you should, the spacing's a little off, and it will give you like actionable recommendations. And by the time you're all done with it, your page will be legitimately better. Like,
yeah,
and I've done this countless times. It's so, so good at that. But you have to do it really slowly. Like, I think sometimes people will try to just like vomit into chat GPT and like do this like crazy project. And it's like, it can't do that.
yeah.
Right.
And try to
But if
get
you
like 15 answers at once out of one.
yeah,
Yeah,
like if you submitted some long sales page that's like 10,000 words and say, "Fix this sales page," it's gonna, like, malfunction, right? It
yeah,
just can't do that. But if you take, "Okay, I'm just gonna take a screenshot above the fold," and just, like, literally go each section like that all the way down the sales page. It takes forever to do this, by the way. But by the end of it, it's almost impossible not to have a better page. It
mm,
will absolutely make it better. Even another small example, like if you don't know how to use a particular tool, like let's say someone's using Carrot and they're like, "Oh, I can't figure out how to, change my headline on with the builder or something."
yeah.
What they could do is they could take a screenshot, post it into ChatGPT and say, "Hey, how do I, and then state their specific problem that they have, and they could fix it that way.
Interesting.
I've done this even with like my wife just read children's book, and I had to do Amazon FBA for the first time.
Mm.
Whoa, man, you want to talk about the hardest thing? And like I'm pretty tech savvy, like I know how to use stuff pretty well, and like man, it is really difficult, really not user friendly at all.
Interesting.
So I was like, man, I don't know how anyone's ever sold anything on Amazon. It's so
Yeah.
difficult. But basically, what I did is every time I hit a roadblock, screenshot, go right in ChatGPT, say, how do I fix this? How do I fix that? And then every time I just get over the roadblock. So
Yeah.
it's incredible, is the point. So
Interesting, man. That's
yeah,
wild. Yeah, I've used it a little bit for coding, just like writing a script for a website or something, or like, hey, this thing is appearing this way on a website. How do I fix that? And look at the code. Yeah, I'll have to start using it more for like, hey, analyze a screenshot. That's a good one. I hadn't thought about that. Um, let's talk a little more about like what's working for SEO right now, and then I want to get your thought on what's coming down the pipeline in 2025. Um, I guess I'll boil just for the sake of time. I can't ask you a million more questions, but what would you recommend for a real estate investor who's trying to get their website ranked for to get local seller leads? Say they're in a really competitive market and they're putting out unique content on their website. Their website's optimized for conversion. They've started building some backlinks. What are the things that are going to help move the needle when there's just a lot of competition?
yeah. I mean, the first thing is always thinking from the bottom of the funnel and then working your way up. And this is one thing that I think can be a mistake for a lot of local businesses is there's a tendency to kind of like skip right over all the commercial pages and get right into the informational content, which
Mm,
is a big mistake. And so just to give you some context, like when we build a local campaign, let's say it's like a HVAC business, we'll just use that
yeah.
example. The first thing we're doing is we're thinking about every single commercial page that we need to build, every single one. And I'm not even going to care about any informational content or informational keywords at all until that's all squared away. So creating the furnace repair page, creating a, AC repair page, creating the HVAC, the broader service page, emergency HVAC page, just going down the list of all the different types of queries that they might get and having a dedicated page for each of those, assuming they all have different intent, right?
Mhm.
And that's the first thing is like you want to build those first because those are probably going to be prioritized in the navigation and they're going to be really important pages. But then from there, once those are built out, then what you have to do is you need to build support around each of those individual pages. So, for example, if it was furnace repair St. Louis, okay, that would be what I would call like a mother topic. So at the middle of that cluster would be furnace repair St. Louis. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to build support around that idea. So I might create a data driven piece of content about how many furnaces break down in the winter in St. Louis every year,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
And I'll start to collect data, and I'll build out some sort of curated piece of content on that. And then what that does is, number one, it helps build proper topic relevance and authority, local authority, which is really, really important. But most importantly, when I create an asset, I'm thinking about, can I use this for link building?
Mm,
Right. And so what I can do is I can go and pitch this data driven asset to local reporters, to local news stations, and I can use it as my collateral for just link building in general.
yeah.
Right. And so that's one thing that I think a lot of times we spend on is like first getting the commercial pages and then thinking about what are like 3 to 5 linkable assets that we can create. That's it. I think you don't think you need to create 100, just 3 to 5 that we can
Mm,
build. The best type of linkable asset is something very specific to their core discipline, whatever their core service is. So in this one I'm talking about here would be HVAC, furnace repair, XYZ, plus the location that they're trying to target. So
mm,
you want to have
yeah.
both of those together, because what you don't want to do is create content like, what is a furnace?
Right.
That's not gonna do anything,
Yeah. It's
right?
not going to rank either. And it's not, people aren't going to want that.
Exactly. Yeah, and so and by the way, I've kinda changed my opinion about this over the last probably about year, because I used to be absolutely like, "Don't create any national content if you're a local business."
Mm,
And so what I mean, like, by national content is like, what is a furnace? What is a air conditioner? Like, stuff like that. I'm not entirely opposed to that type of content, only for the reason that if you do it well, it can be effective for link building. That's the only reason, right?
mm, yeah.
Just because the downs there is one downside of getting hyper localized with your content is your pool of opportunities gets highly restricted.
Yeah.
So you're going to really struggle to kind of collect a lot, like a significant sum of links. So to kind of expand your site authority, you're going to have to start look more nationally. And
Yeah.
there's downsides to that, which is it's going to inflate your traffic numbers, but it's not going to lead to conversions. However, it can help you drive some really national, high-powered links that can help fuel your performance on the local level. So
Interesting. Yeah.
so I'd say it's like 80/20. Probably like 80% of your content should have that kind of like localized intent,
Hmm.
while the other 20% would be more of like that experimental national based content.
Yeah.
Um, just trying to get national coverage, basically. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah,
Well, this is also good news for Carrot members because, like, when you launch a Carrot website, we do a lot of those pages for you. We call them your core conversion pages, like the homepage, the how it works page, the about us page. But for people listening, make sure to go in and optimize those pages for your brand. Add your own brand personality. Add some images in there. Work on those pages before you start creating a bunch of new content for link building, like you talked about. Mm, that's good. Okay, so let's as we kind of head to a close, what are some of the things if you had a crystal ball, where do you see SEO changing over the next year? It's really interesting, especially with Search GPT, Chat GPT search thing popping up. Or maybe what are some of the things you're hoping for?
yeah,
Which
yeah. I
yeah,
don't hope for much. Yeah, I just
yeah, you
take it
can't
as it
with Google.
I take
Yeah.
it as it comes. But yeah, I kind of did a YouTube video kind of doing my like predictions coming up here for next year. And
Uh-huh.
funny enough, one of my predictions has already come true before
Really?
the year has even ended, which is was going to start expanding the AI overviews across different types of keywords. So it
Oh
used to
yeah.
be, yeah. So like initially that when they first launched it, it was just for really long tail, like informational keywords. So, you know, I don't know, how to fix my squeaking door or something like that, right?
Mhm.
It'd be something really long tail. But I predicted that they'd start to show on localized searches, they'd start to show on commercialized searches, and that's the case. It's being rolled out basically across the board now at this point. I'm seeing it across every keyword basically, with the exception of really like e-commerce heavy type of keywords. So like, I don't know, best baseball cleats or something like that. I don't see them as much for those types of queries, but definitely
Yeah.
starting to see a lot more in the local front. So
I've
that's one thing.
I've got
You
some
know,
rift with that just because like there's so many of those AI summaries from Google that are just factually wrong and
no,
just
no,
sloppily put together. Like it sucks. It just straight up sucks. And they know it, like they know how bad it is, and they just opened up ads on it too. I'm like, are you kidding me? You
yep.
gotta get the thing, you gotta get the AI summaries working before you put ads on it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, they're moving. I think they're a little afraid of their competition, so they're moving very, very fast.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But for me, I actually don't stress out much about the AI overviews because in my opinion, they're really just a glorified featured snippet.
Mm,
So when the
yeah,
when the featured snippets came along, everyone lost their minds about that too, right? And at the end of the day, we can't control what Google does. So all we can do is try to figure out how do we occupy as much real estate on Google for our most important keywords. So if and by the way, as far as the ranking factors in the AI overviews, it's just being pulled from the top 10. So
mm,
you need to be in the top 10 to be in the AI overviews. And it's actually the same with Search GPT as well. With Search
mm,
GPT, the majority of the results that are ranking or in the citations are the top ranking results, right?
yeah,
It's so essentially, if you want to show up in the large language models, Chat GPT, Perplexity, whichever ones you want, and you want to show up in Google's AI products, it's comes right back to just doing good SEO.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and the other thing too, which I know we didn't get in much into Search GPT, but based on the study that I did, uh, to show up in Search GPT, it's actually being pulled from Bing and DuckDuckGo. So
Really?
a lot of those results that are in there really mirror DuckDuckGo in particular, and Bing about 50%. So what I
Mm,
did is I did about 500 results from SearchGPT, and then I put them side by side against the three different search engines. So I did Google, Bing, and DuckDuckGo to see like how similar they were. And to my surprise, DuckDuckGo was the most similar to Search GPT as far as the results. I mean, there was like barely any variance whatsoever. So like
interesting.
the top 10 for Search GPT was basically the top 10 for DuckDuckGo. So so anyway, yeah. And then Google and Bing were about 50% similar compared to Search GPT.
Okay.
So the point is rank everywhere. Do SEO across the board. It's going to be beneficial because if you do well for SEO in the traditional search engines, that's just going to be
Yeah,
what will happen in large language models too. So,
yeah.
um, and last point on this, don't view Chat GPT as just a tool. That's one thing. Like, obviously, that's the one. Like, that's the way we think about. A lot of people think about it, but I think like I'm purely for business. Think about it as actually a traffic source now. It's
Mm,
actually a marketing channel that we can actually drive high quality traffic back to our website. And I think this always goes back to what the objective should be, like looking at the full funnel process, right? Like when you post on X or you post on LinkedIn or you post on YouTube, like the number one goal is to get people back to your website,
mhm,
right? So even showing up in the large language models, like if we get them back to our website, the goal would be to get them on our email list and get them to like, because then we actually can control that traffic better. But any audience you have on LinkedIn or X or any of these platforms, it's all rented land. They don't
mhm.
actually own any of that.
Right.
So the only like truly things that we truly own in our businesses is our email list. And technically, I guess the email provider could take that away from you too.
Yeah,
But as long as you export it out, you should be good to go. But your email list and your customer list, right?
yeah.
Those are the two things that you actually own in your business. So I think every like strategy should be like, okay, how do we get people off of these platforms back to our website?
Mm,
And the cool thing is ChatGPT now is actually a referral source because of Search GPT. So it can actually send you traffic, which is kind
yeah.
of cool.
That's
So
good.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I was using ChatGPT just in the last week to can't remember what I was looking for. It was a screen recording software or something, but I was like, I don't want to take the time to research this. Just hey, ChatGPT, give me the five. Recommend me five screen recording softwares, and they must have features X, Y, Z. Must meet this criteria. Give me the top five. And then after it gave me those, I was like, okay, let's look at reviews. Let's look at the. But I got really lazy with it just to see what it would give me. But I don't know, it worked. And then yeah,
Yeah.
they're getting traffic from it. So
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. So
What are a couple other things you see coming down the pipeline?
the one trend that I'm seeing is that ChatGPT is really making a lot of ground as far as being one of the most popular websites.
Yeah.
I think it's actually now number 8. Last time I checked, it was number 8 most popular website on the internet. So
Wow. Holy cow.
I would assume it's probably going to get into the top 5. I would imagine in the next year or so.
Next year. Yeah.
Which as far as orders of magnitude, that is no small feat. To go
Yeah.
from 8 to 5, I mean, that's like
That's
that's e that's
that.
significant. I don't know if it will surpass YouTube and Google. Obviously, Google's number 1, YouTube's number 2. I don't see how it could beat YouTube because YouTube's just insane how much traffic they have. We also don't know how much traffic TikTok gets because it's all hidden data because it's
Mm,
a Chinese-owned company.
yeah.
So we don't know their true numbers, but I would assume TikTok's somewhere in the top 5 if we had their real numbers. But to see that ChatGPT is making that much ground just shows like this is not something to just look at as a fun little toy to play with. This is
Right.
like this is something where we need to be thinking about how do we get visibility in ChatGPT? How do we train the large language models on our brand? How do we train the large language models on the things that we sell? Like for example, best real estate investors in St. Louis. How do we
Yeah.
end up on that list? Right.
Yeah.
And the way you end up on the list is you get cited a lot on the internet about being one of the best real estate investors in St. Louis.
Yeah.
Right. So there's no shortcuts here. It's all the same stuff, but it's just a different channel.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Interesting. That's good insight, man. Yeah, it's going to be the last year or two were really interesting. It's going to be another really interesting year, especially with Search GPT. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
as
Just
well,
try
man.
to, I mean, I think SEO should be at the center of everything that we're doing because it fuels everything else.
Yeah,
So it fuels the large language models. It fuels obviously pretty much everything, honestly, at this point. So, and I specifically Google, but just thinking about how do we get more visibility on the other platforms too is going to be, it's kind of this circular thing now at this point. So yeah,
yeah.
don't be just like, I'm just a Google type of business unless you really like a lot of risk, but I
Right.
personally wouldn't do it.
Yeah,
So
I hear you,
yeah,
man. And in SEO, it's where the most motivated leads are. I mean, we already know this, but like, it's where the people that are already bottom of the funnel with the most specific questions, trying to find you. That's where the real leads are, other than the tire kickers. Well, cool, man. As we wrap up, where can people find you if they want to connect with you, learn about what you do?
yeah, I mean, obviously, gotchseo.com is a good place if you're looking more for kind of training focused things for SEO. But Rankability is, the software that I have that helps you create SEO content that ranks. So if you're trying to get better performance with your SEO content, it would be the tool that I would recommend using, obviously. A little
Rock and
biased,
roll.
but
Yeah,
yeah.
I hear you, man. It's a good tool. All right. Well, everybody, thanks for listening. Nathan, thanks for hopping on. It's been a fun conversation, always is,
Yeah, my
but
pleasure.
yeah. Thanks for hanging out with us. Anybody listening, if you got value out of this, leave us a review, tell a friend about the podcast, and thanks for hanging out. If you have any questions or ideas, feel free to shoot me an email. I always love to talk, brady@carrot.com. But yeah, thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you on the next episode.